Hello everyone. So recently, Education Japan conducted a workshop in collaboration with Kyoto University of Advanced Sciences. Kyoto University of Advanced Sciences, it's a leading engineering university located in Japan. And Dr. Liang, who is a professor in Kuas University, during this workshop, she taught students how to develop their own AI chatbot. So, for the benefit of our subscribers, for those of you who are interested to learn how to develop their own AI chatbot, please continue to watch this video, and the whole workshop is recorded here for you. So, by the end of this video, you will definitely end up with a very valuable skill of developing your own app. So please carry on. Let me introduce Professor Liang before she starts the workshop. So Dr. Zilu Liang holds a PhD in Electrical Engineering and Information System from the University of Tokyo. It is one of the most prestigious universities in Japan. During her studies, she participated in exchange programs at the University of Oxford and Imperial College London. She was also awarded the Australian Government Endeavour Research Fellowship, and she worked as a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Melbourne. Following this, she became an assistant professor at the University of Tokyo and received numerous awards for her research efforts and findings. She currently serves as a junior associate professor at Kyoto University of Advanced Sciences, Faculty of Engineering, and she runs many groundbreaking projects and conducts research regularly. So I welcome Professor to start the workshop. All yours, Professor, now.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you very much for your kind introduction, Deepti. So as you may already know, today we're going to learn about how to make Android apps. And specifically, we're going to make a ChatGPT app today in about 1 hour. Okay. First, I'd like to invite everybody to join Kahoot. You can find the URL in the chat. Please click the URL. Let me share my screen. Yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. Today, we're going to build a ChatGPT-based AI app. Some people might misunderstand it as using ChatGPT to build the app for you. No, that's misconception. ChatGPT still doesn't have the ability to build an app for you. What we're going to do today is actually to build our AI app on top of ChatGPT. Okay, so we are using ChatGPT for the purpose of generating images, right, based on our description. And we're going to use something called App Inventor. So this is a programming environment developed at MIT, and it's a visual programming. Visual programming means we don't need to type to code by ourselves. Instead, we drag and drop blocks. It's like playing puzzles. So it's easier to get started for even beginners. And I want you guys to really relax and enjoy it. So don't try to understand everything. It's all right if you don't get everything. I mean, just have some fun. If you understand everything already, you don't need to come to university, right? So don't feel stressed if you get stuck somewhere. It's all right. Okay. And basically, this is what we're going to make. So it's going to be an image generator. So what the app can do is as users, we input some description of an image, and then we click the Draw for Me button. Then the app will generate an image based on the description of the image. So it's very, very simple app, but it's quite fun. And I'm going to walk you through all the technical details as well as how to actually construct or build and test this app. And I'm pretty sure that all of you all of you are using some sort of smartphone applications every day, right? You probably use WhatsApp or Line, and Google Map, for example, right? You use a lot of different kinds of smartphone apps. And basically these applications were built using some programming languages. All right, so but in this workshop, we're not going to use that sort of hardcore programming languages because it takes time. It takes time to get familiar with the languages. So in this workshop, we're going to use App Inventor. As I said, it's like playing puzzles, right? So you drag and drop and then combine the blocks in a web application, and then we can test it on our smartphone. And it's really a very friendly environment even for beginners. You don't need any background in programming. And I'm going to explain some of the technical details later. So if you want to make an application, first you need to build the user interface. So right now what we're looking at is a user interface. Basically, a user interface is some sort of information window where the user can interact with the system. So we normally start with building the user interface, and then we're going to move on to build something called back end. So user interface is everything that users can see when they interact with the app, whereas the back end is something in the background that users don't see, but actually they're more important. So let's get started with making a user interface. If you are comfortable with my pace, you can follow me step by step, but I guess probably today my pace will be a bit fast. So I imagine this is more like a cooking show. So you guys just watch me building the app. If you're interested in building your own, then you can probably try it out later after the workshop. Okay, so I'm going to switch now to the App Inventor. And so I can show you how to build the user interface. Okay, here comes the App Inventor. It's a web application. So you just Google App Inventor, you should be able to find it. And just log in. You create your own account. If you have a Google account, you can log in right away. And then you start a new project like what I did now. So I'm now on a new project. It's basically blank. And the user interface is quite simple. So we have very few elements. First, we need to write the title of the app, the name of the app, right? For that purpose, we need to drag and drop a label. I already have it here. So this is for the title of the app. And I'm going to change it to ChatGPT Image Generator. You can name it other names. Right now, just for simplicity, I call it ChatGPT Image Generator. And you can, sometimes if you stay inactive, you'll be logged out. So you need to renew the session. That's what I'm doing right now. Just renew the session. There we go. And I want to make the title larger. So I just need to go to the properties on the right. And then here is something called font size. Change it to maybe 20, maybe 25. You can always test and see how it works out. And I want to make it bold. Change it to ChatGPT Image Generator. Okay, you can even change the color of the text. I'm going to change it to probably, let's say, pink. No, pink. Yeah, my favorite color. All right, that's the title of the app. Now, next, we need a text input box where a user can describe the image they want to generate, right? For that purpose, we need to drag a text box. There we go. And then we need a button. And on the button, it should be draw for me or generate image for me, anything. So this is basically the button where the user click to submit their prompt, and then the app will generate the image for them. All right, you can make the font bold. And just for visual purpose, I'm going to configure the screen to align all the elements in the center. Now it looks better. And if you feel like all the elements are very squeezed, then I can probably add, let's say, a space holder here. Sorry, it's the image I'm completed. You can use label as space holder. Remove the text. All right, and then you need another UI element image. This is where the generated image is going to show on the user interface. And I'm going to rescale it to fill parent. So fill parents allows the image to expand to the space as not as the screen. All right, this is pretty simple UI, but we have all the essential elements we need for the user interaction, right? That's all for the UI. As you can see here, we can build UI really, really fast using the app inventor. But it probably takes more time to design a beautiful UI. Now I'm going to switch back to Kahoot. Okay, now the next step is to build the back end, right? If you just have a UI, for example, right now, if you click the button, nothing happens because we need to configure the actions of the app in the back end. And in order to do that, first, I'd like to walk you through some basic knowledge of ChatGPT. Yes, so ChatGPT is a kind of generative AI. So there are AI that just give you a label, they cannot chat with you. So those AIs are not called generative AI. So ChatGPT is a very, very specific, special types of AI. And this generative AI is studied in the domain of natural language processing. And it's a field in computer science. So if you want to build an app that use some features of or functions of the ChatGPT, then you have to do it using OpenAI API. For example, you can use the OpenAI API to build something that help you generate images. You can use it to build chatbots. You can use it to build personal assistant. And application programming interface. I'm not sure if you are familiar with this concept. It's actually nowadays very, very widely used. And I'm pretty sure everybody has used it, even though probably you are not aware that you were using API. So basically, API is an interface that allows different software and hardware to talk to each other. When I say talk, that means to exchange information in between each other. For example, I guess maybe many of you have used this kind of third-party login, right? When you try to log in a web service, maybe you have these options to log in using other accounts like Instagram account, Facebook account, Google account. Actually, when you use this kind of third-party login, you are using API. So you are using the API of GitHub, Instagram API, Facebook API, Google API, LinkedIn API to get your account information from their server to the new service you're trying to log in, right? So you're actually using a third-party API, even though you're not aware of it. A lot of things was happening in the background. Today we're going to build our image generating app. That means we will need to make our app talk with the OpenAI API. And this figure here shows you how the OpenAI API works. There are different, different architecture or different structures of API. It's quite fun to design API. And probably you think API is something fixed. It's one thing, it's the one design. Actually, it's not. You can have different architectures. And frankly, I think the Open API is one of the simplest API I've dealt with. We have more complicated API. For example, I'm using a smartwatch. So if you want to make an app that works with the API of Apple Watch or Fitbit, the API would be more complicated. So we're lucky today we have, we just need to use a very simple API. And there are two important steps when your app interact with the OpenAI API. First, you need to get your API key. So your app needs to communicate with the authorization server of the OpenAPI to obtain an API key. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So this authorization is very important when we work with API, because security is the the top priority when you make this kind of system. So you want to make sure, or OpenAPI want to make sure, you are the one that is allowed to take whatever action your app is planning to do, right? And after you obtain an OpenAI API key, now the next step is to make a request to resource server. So as you can see here, your app is actually interacting with two kinds of servers. One is authorization server, and the other is resource server. So the resource server has all the resources you need, but you need to get your API key first from the authorization server. Okay, and then this resource server needs you to show your API key for the purpose of authentication, because the resource server needs to make sure you are the person that is actually allowed. So you say you are the user and you're actually the user. Okay. I hope you got the basic idea here. All right. After I hope all of you got the basic idea. You need to get the key first, and then you need to make the request, right? And when we actually build the back end of the app, we have to do these 4 steps. Of course, the first step is to obtain the API key. And then the second step is to make the request, right? But in order to make the request, we need to prepare something first. The things we are going to prepare is called request header. So you need to specify some information. You need to tell the server what you want to do, what kind of resources you want to retrieve. Yeah, that sort of meta information. And that is called request header. So we need to prepare a request header before we can actually make an API request. And then after you make the API request, you're going to receive a response from the server, right? Maybe some of you are imagining, all right, so we request an image. That means I'm going to receive an image. Yes, but not yes. Actually, what you receive from the server is a string of textual data. So you actually need to process that data to grab in the information you need and then convert that information to image and show it on the UI. So it's actually a long process. And I'm going to explain that how to process the response we receive from the server. So yeah, and the process, the workflow looks very, very simple, 4 steps, but in each step, there are a lot of details to pay attention to. So first, we need to obtain the API key. And in order to do so, you need to visit the OpenAPI.com to create your API key. It's actually very... Can you guys still see my screen? Just want to make sure. No problem?
No problem, Professor.
Okay, good, great, thank you. Let's visit the OpenAI website and log in. If you have Google account, you can log in right away. If not, then you need to create an account. And then you land on this page. We're going to choose API because we're going to use its API. And then on this page, you go to your personal, your profile icon. And then in the drop-down list, you can see this view API keys, right? Click that. I already have 2 keys, so they're listed here. In your case, if you're new, then probably you have no key. In that case, you just click this create new secret key. So this is to create your API key. And you need to give it a name. Let's say I call it key webinar because we created it during our webinar. Create secret key. Now you need to copy it and paste it in a safe place, because there's no way for you to access this after you hit done. There's no way for you to access it. So you have to make a copy right now and then paste it in a safe place. And I recommend you to paste it in maybe Word file or Notepad. And then hit done. You can see our new keys here, but there's no way for us to actually check it. All right. In case you forget to copy and paste the key, and now you have no way to retrieve it, in that case, you just create a new key. You probably need to delete it and create a new key. Okay. And don't forget to copy and paste the key. Yeah, that's the first step. Now, the next step is to prepare the request header. There are a lot of details going on here. So how do we know? How do we know what we need to write in the request header? Well, to answer this question, you need to visit the API reference. There's an official website where you can find all these details. These are basically the rules, okay, like grammar rules you have to follow, because OpenAI decided to make it like this. So there's no other way but to follow it, all right? It's like grammar rules. No, you just create a new key once, and then you copy and paste it somewhere in a safe place, and next time you just reuse the key. You don't need to create a new key for each time. Okay, so if you're curious about all the technical details, you probably should access this API reference and then check all the details. Oh, okay, I'll answer questions later because I get distracted. Oh, sorry. I will answer all the other questions in the chat later. Otherwise, we'll never be able to finish. Today we're going to make the image generating app, right? So the header, the information we need to prepare is here. So we need to specify the content type, and then you might ask me that why content type? There's no why. It's just like grammar rules. You need to specify content type. And in many cases, we just need to specify the content type as application/JSON. Okay. It's like grammar rules. Okay. It's like learning English, right? You just need to know, oh, I should write it like this and remember it. That's all. And then another information you need to specify is the authorization. And for this one, you need to write bearer space and then your API key. This is also like grammar rules, and you need to follow this format. Yeah. So if you use like Linux system, and if you have a terminal, you can just type these lines in the terminal. But in App Inventor, the way we are using the blocks, right? So we need to drag and combine the blocks, and that's what I'm going to do now. So let's switch back to the App Inventor. This is the user interface. Now we need to build the backend. So we switch to the blocks here. Blocks. First, we need to create a variable that holds our API key. So you click on the variables. You need initialize a global variable. I'm going to change it to API key. If you don't understand everything, it's all right. It's all right. You just need to get used to it. I mean, gradually, or if you come to class, you'll learn all the details. And then you specify your API key, but we're going to use a very, very special text. It's called obfuscated text. This is like hide your secrets, for hiding your secret, because your API key is super top secret. Okay, then you just need to copy and paste your API key here. Okay, this is the API key. And then the next step is to prepare the request header. So the request header should be configured in the click header of the button, because that is an action that will happen once the button is here, this button. When user click this button, then something's gonna happen, right? So the request preparation is happening inside the click header of the button. Oh, we forgot something just now, I'm sorry. We need another component. This is a invisible component. It's somewhere in connectivity web. So we need a web component here, because we need a web component that allows us to make communication between our app and the OpenAI server. Now we need to prepare the request header. So we go to this web1 request header set with web request header to something. So we need to prepare all the information that I have just explained, all this information, right? So we wrap all the information using a data structure called dictionary. Dictionary here. We create a dictionary with all the information we need. And the information is organized using key value pairs, key and value. The first key is content type, right? It's not rocket science. Okay, you can get all this information in the API reference. The content type should be application/JSON. And then the second pair, you can just Control-C and Control-V. I need a similar block here. And then the second pair is authorization. And for authorization, you need a joint of text. Join text. And the first part is bearer. It's fixed. We just need to follow it. Bearer. And make sure you include a space here. It's very important. Otherwise, you get error. And then the second part is our API key. So I'm going to hover my mouse here on the API key variable and use this get global API key. Use this method. There we go. So now we have our request header ready. And then now I'm going to switch back to Kahoot. Now the next step is to actually post the API request. We have the header, and now we need to make the request to the server, right? So how to make a request? Again, you need to check the reference. You know, as developers, we always check the documentation or references. That's where we find all the information we need. It's like learning, as I said, it's like learning English, right? You need to know, oh, okay, there are all those grammar rules. Where do you find the grammar rules? In your textbook, right? We don't invent them by ourselves. We refer to the references. So now the information I need to tell the app is the URL of the server or the API. And again, the URL is fixed. You can find the information in their reference documentation. And okay, after specifying telling the app where to find the server, now you need to tell the server what you want. Again, you need to use a dictionary to wrap up a bunch of information, and then the server knows exactly what you want, right? Here we have three types of information we need to tell the server. First, we need to tell the server what kind of images we want to generate. And this information is bounded with the key prompt. If you're familiar with ChatGPT, you should know that prompt. And then the second information is how many images you want to generate. And in many cases, we just set it to 1. And then the last information you need to tell the server is the size of the image. And in our case, you can either set it to 256. Sometimes I set it to 1024. Okay, now let's build these blocks in our app inventor. I'm sorry, I'm starting to get really talk really fast because we're running out of time. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to set the URL. There we go, set the web URL. This is to tell the app where to find the server, the OpenAI API. We need a text here. Right, and then you need to type the URL is this api.openai.com. B1 images. Well, depending on what kind of resources you want, you probably want to change this part. But right now, this is the URL that we need. And then you need to set the content of the request. So we need this post text. And again, we need to make a dictionary to wrap all the information we need for the server. So I'm going to copy and then paste. Yeah, but instead of this key value pairs, we need something different, right? We need the first information we need is prompt. And the second information we need to tell the server is in, right? And then we need another key value pair, but we don't have. So we click this mutator, add another pair. There you go. And we need the other information for the size of the image. For the prompt, if you remember on the user interface, we have a text input box, right? So this is where the user inputs a description of the image. And we need to get that information and send it to the server. So we need to use this text box. We need to get the text from the text box and then set it to prompt. And then for in, we normally set it to 1. We only want 1 image. If you want 2 images, then you set it to 2. And then for the size of the image, let's set it to 1024 by 1024. All right, so basically this is the API post. You specify the address, where to find the server, and then the content of your request. All right, and then after that, then the next step is wait, right? Wait, you need to wait until the server generates a response to you. And the bad news is that the information or the response we receive from the server is not a beautiful picture. Instead, it's like this. You know, it's a long strings of text, and we need to process this text. And if you're familiar with something called JSON, you should be able, oh, this is JSON. Yes, this is it. This data is organized in JSON format. And in order to grab the information we need to peel the JSON, this whole JSON object. So I often tell my student, you know, peeling the parse, we call parse. Parsing JSON file is like peeling an onion. It has a lot of layers. You need to peel the layer one by one until you get the layer you want. So first, let's take a look at what information we got here. We have basically 2 key and value pairs, right? The first key value pair is created. So the created is the timestamp. Is the timestamp of the image when the image was generated. And then you have another key value. The other key value is data. So this data is the information we need. It's the URL of the image in the OpenAI server. This is the information we need. So we need to peel the JSON, all the JSON text to get this data. And we're not interested in created, so that information is irrelevant to us. And it's a long process, you know. And as you can see, if we just show the raw response, it's gonna be like that, right, on top. And then we need to process it layer by layer. Eventually, we get the URL of the image. It's a long process, and I'm sorry I don't have time to go through all the details. And so I'm just going to show you the final step today. And if you're interested, actually, you can look for information on JSON parsing on the internet. We have libraries for parsing JSON data for many programming languages, including Python. All right, so I'm going to switch back to App Inventor and build this part. So this will happen. This will not happen in the button click handler. It's going to happen in a different event. And this is going to happen when the web one component got response. So it's a different event handler because this is a totally different event. And what we're going to do here is first you need to convert the raw response to a dictionary in App Inventor. Otherwise, there's no way for us to process it. We have to do that first. The response content is the response you get from the server. So we need to convert it to a dictionary first. And we need to use this get value for key. So this is the dictionary, right? We need to get the value for data. We're only interested in that part. If you ask me why data, please check the API reference. Now we need to process this using some lists blocks, and it's like several layers. We need to use this one. Since we're running out of time, so I'm going to do it just fast. The first layer, we need to grab the first element. Oh, sorry, this is incorrect. This is incorrect. We need to use select item. Yeah, we need to select the first item from the list we have. And then this is peeling the first layer. And we need to peel the second layer. Please don't ask me like why. We don't have time to go through that. You just remember this is how you parse JSON data. Again, this is something fixed, okay? It's like grammar rules. You just need to remember it. Okay, now after peeling three layers, finally we got the URL of the image. And now we need to show the image. We have an image component, right? So we set the image, the picture of the image to the URL we have just obtained. This one is unnecessary. Yeah, there we go. So this is how we peel the JSON data, and eventually we got URL and show it to the picture. I think it looks perfect. We pretty much got all the blocks already. And now I'm going to test the app on my phone. So I will need to reset the emulator. Just give me 1 minute. You can connect your device to App Inventor, and then you can happily test your app on the real device. It takes some time for the connection. All right, as you can see here. Oh, please look at the camera. You can see the user interface is reflected, is shown on my device, right? And then I want this app to generate a dancing panda. A dancing panda. Yeah, so you input the prompt in the text box, and then I hit the button. And I need to wait a little bit. Oh, there's an error. And you see, we always get error during our development. I suppose the error is because I didn't include space here. So I'm going to try again. There could be many reasons for error. So you as developer, you're like a detective. You're trying to figure out what happened. Or it could be the problem with the API key. So I can change. Maybe I can try the other key. Maybe I didn't copy it correctly. You don't need to panic when you get an error. It's very common. We got errors all the time. and we just need to fix it. Oh, more errors. Yeah, this happens all the time. I just need to check if I got everything right. Authorization. Or to be the URL. Images. Generation. Sometimes it could be typos, there are so many things that could cause error. Prompt. Oh. Yeah, the not found is here. It's because we're not getting response from the server. So it could be because we're not specifying the correct API, or it could be any sort of typos in any of these variables or texts. Yeah. So I'm trying to check if there are any typos, because we're not, that error is telling me we're not getting response. We're not getting the intended response from the server. We got error message. And just now I was checking here. Here. Oh, still we're we're getting an error. All right, we're running out of time. I'm sorry. We ended up with debugging, but I guess I can spend maybe 10 minutes later for debugging and show you the intended results. Because we still have several slides to go through. So let's switch back to the Kahoot. This is a summary of the code we have just built. So the basic flow again is very, very simple. First, you specify the API key, and then you prepare the request header. You make the actual request, and then once you receive the intended response from the server, you do all this peeling to get the information you need from the JSON data. Okay, before I finish, here's a quick wrap up. So what we learned today, first we learned about App Inventor. Is a visual programming environment that you can use to build apps really quickly. And then we briefly went through the OpenAI API workflow. It's quite simple. And then we talked about JSON parsing, because the response we received from the OpenAI API server had a lot of information. So we need to parse the information to get the part that we actually need. And yeah, so the whole process is actually the basic workflow when you make Android app development. You start with the idea, and then you build your user interface, and then you build the backend, and then you debug. I'm still in debugging. You can actually click here, build, and then you can build the APK file. This is the executable. So you can share this APK file with your friends or with your family, and then they can install it on their phone. So you can, make something really nice and then share it with others. They can install it on their device. All right, that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Professor, we can open for Q&A regarding the workshop. If students have questions, they can ask you either on the chat box, or they can unmute themselves and ask.
Yeah, they can ask me directly. And I remember seeing some questions in chat just now. Yeah, is it okay if I start with the questions in the chat? Okay, I'm looking at this question. Are we supposed to create a new key for each time? No, as I said, you just need to, but you need to make sure you have a copy of your key, because there's no way for you to check it on the OpenAI website. So you have to have a copy of it somewhere, and then you can reuse the key many times. But there are some limits. If you have a free account, there are some limits. So you probably, if for example you develop a product type, a product grade application, then you probably need to have a premium account of OpenAI that allows you to use the key many times. One key for every project, not always, not really. You can use key in different projects. Yeah, but it's a good practice, maybe one key for one project. But if your resource is limited, I think you don't need to be very particular about that. What about access? What access? Yeah, we will share the recording on the session.
Professor, we can share your code once we make it work. We can share the code with all the participants.
Yeah, exactly. I will keep debugging. Maybe I can export it and share it with all of you later in the chat. Is that okay?
Yes, yes, Professor.
Oh, the image of the code. Yeah, okay, sure. Right here. This I tested this code in the morning and it worked perfectly. So I don't know what happened just now. You know, something about this app inventor is they're still developing it. So sometimes there is, like, for example, upgrade, and that would cause, you know, some turbulence. Does it include knowledge of Python? App inventor doesn't use Python, so you don't need to have any knowledge of Python to use app inventor. If you like Python, you can do something different, right? You can write the whole application, like a web application in Python, to work with app inventor. The basic workflow is the same. It's irrelevant to programming language. So the API workflow is the same for all programming languages. You just need to, it's like translation work, right? It's like saying the same thing in different languages. It's just a translation. Is there any possibility? Yes, indeed. Actually, in one of our classes, we used it's called TinyDB. It's very cute. It's called TinyDB, and you can save the data in your TinyDB. Does it support any specific language? Okay, good question. So app inventor is written in Java. It makes sense, right? Because Android apps are written in Java. So app inventor, the platform, the whole thing. Oh, where is it? Oh. App inventor, sorry, I cannot drag it here. Anyway, app inventor is written in Java, and you can find the source code. It's open source. Great news is open source. You can find the source code on GitHub. I love open source software. Yeah, there we go. This is the repository of the source code of app inventor. So if you're into Java, you can actually read through the source code, and then you can, you know, modify it, change some part, and see how it works. You just need to set up your own server. That takes some time. You know, the thing about programming is it's not really that complicated, but there are a lot of grammar rules, you know, grammar rules to follow, and then it takes a lot of time to configure or set up your server and to make all the components work. It's just time consuming. It's not that difficult. App inventor, I haven't tried with Japanese. I suppose maybe, yeah, you probably it's only English compatible. Java is complex. Java is an object-oriented programming language. You might feel a bit uncomfortable when you get started with it. But once you get used to it, it's same as learning anything. If you're not comfortable with Java, then you can probably try Kotlin. Kotlin is slightly, relatively friendly compared with Java. Yeah, that's why Kotlin was invented, exactly. How does the machine manage things? Good question. You actually asked like why machine learning works. Machines don't think by themselves. We need to teach them. That's why we have this training. When you build any AI model, there is a training process. The training process is extremely important. The teaching machine is very similar as teaching kids to learn, right? Neural network. You need to teach them with good data, with good information. If you teach machine with terrible data, with bad data, you won't get a good model. So you need to train a machine with as many data as possible, and the data should be very, very good data. Huge amount of data. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Scratch is a different platform. So App Inventor is not directly compatible with Scratch. Yeah, I know some of you might be like, oh, this is like Scratch. Yeah, similar concept, visual programming, but they're different platforms. What is this DBMS? Database, right? Database. Is it database? Yeah. Sandeep Aurora asked, know the name of DBMS. So do you mean you want to know the name of the database? Okay. It's not really a database management system. It's just a database. It's very, very simple. Tiny DB. You can also use Cloud DB. This is more complicated, and we always have problem with the internet connection. So a safer way is to use TinyDB. It runs directly on the device. Yeah, absolutely. You can customize the user interface. You can add background color. You can have a color theme. Yeah, there are a lot of things you can customize in the user interface. Do you see just now on the menu bar on the right side, you have I need to remove this window. Yeah, so if you go to the designer's view, on the right side, you can see there is the properties window, right? So here we have a lot of variables you can customize. You just need to, work in this part to make a beautiful UI. Our UI is very primitive, I know, because we only have very limited time today. Oh, if you want to want to customize the look of the UI for users, I don't think you can do that directly in this user interface. It's not possible to do it here. If you want to do that, what you can do is you clone the source code of App Inventor, and then you work directly in the source code, and then you need to recompile the whole App Inventor. We can connect to our device using a USB cable. You need some setup. You can also connect while using Wi-Fi, but not using Bluetooth. The next question is not secure. Will it be secure to access Gmail? Yes, no problem. Actually, we made an app that read data from a CSV file from Google Drive, and it worked. Yeah, no problem at all. Did I answer all the questions, or do you have any questions you want asked directly to me? Otherwise, I'm gonna focus on my debugging now. Oh, absolutely. You know, there are some other websites that looks extremely similar to App Inventor because they are built on top of App Inventor. You know, App Inventor is, I said open source, right? Open source, and the license is MIT license. MIT license allows you to change the source, change the code, and then make your commercial product, make profit, no problem at all. So indeed, if you have a good app idea, you can develop it using App Inventor and then export it as a AKP file and then upload it on Google Play. And you can make profit, no problem. All right, so I guess, yes, we can. Actually, we made it in our class. It's a voice translator app. So there are some where's the window? If you go to the left side, and this is a designer's view. Yeah, if you go to the left side, and it should be somewhere social. No. There is a component that allows you to make translation app. Okay. Oh, yeah, there you go. This is the TinyDB. It's a component, UI component. You also have the CloudDB, but this is very, very particular about internet connection. We couldn't use it in using our university Wi-Fi, so we always use TinyDB. I don't remember exactly there. Yeah, here. If you go to the media, in the palette, you go to media, and then you can find this translator component. So this is a component you can use to build a translator app. And in our case, we actually build a voice input translator app. So you can use a voice to text converter. And then you call this translator component. What kind of license we need for that? You don't need any other license, but in many cases, we just use MIT license. How to get the source code of App Inventor? There. Sorry, give me 1 minute. Yeah, here. On GitHub. If you, what's happening here? This is the GitHub repository of App Inventor source code. Yeah, you go there, you can either download, if you're old school, you download it, or you can clone the repository, and then you can work on it on your local environment. Everything's free. And as you can see here, it's mostly written in Java and a little bit of other languages, because App Inventor is cross-platform, right? It's a web application, so you can basically run it on any operating systems as long as you have a browser.
Professor, I'm sorry to interrupt. So after this answer, can we close the Q&A?
Yeah, sure. Can we invent a voice detector? Yeah, sure. You can. There is a speech recognizer. The speech recognizer allows the app to detect user voice and then convert the voice to text. And then we can do a lot of things on it. All right. Then I'll stay quiet and then debug my app. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much for your time. And students will look forward to receiving the code from you. So you can send it to us, and we will be sending it on the emails that we have.
Yeah. Okay, no problem. Thank you so much, everybody.
So just a show of hands, everybody who learned something new and they enjoyed in the workshop, just raise your hands. It will be nice to see that, Professor, right?
Yeah, it's extremely rewarding experience. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. So we will break for 2 minutes and it is 12:24, not for 2 minutes. We can have a 5-minute break. So we will start at 12:30. Just get some water and after that, we will have information session. You will learn about Japan as an education destination and Professor Zilu Liang, she is from KUAS University. All the students who would be considering Japan to study for their further education, you must attend this session because we have admissions director and a current student who is studying in KUAS University with us. We will start in 5 minutes.